Hey Raiders fans, welcome back. Today, we are diving deep into the hot topic of the number one overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft and what it really means for the Las Vegas Raiders. This is a conversation every fan wants to have. Should the Raiders trade that pick? And if so, what would it take to make it worth it? I'm going to break it down for you and give you my perspective on what the trade cost would look like if a team wanted to try and take that pick from the Raiders. Before we get started, I want to make something very clear. I am all in on Fernando Mendoza. I think he is a franchise quarterback, and if the Raiders are serious about building around someone who can elevate this team for years, Mendoza is that guy. Now, I know a lot of fans have been asking about trade scenarios and the potential value of this number one pick. I get it, supply and demand is a huge factor in the NFL Draft, and teams are always looking to move up if they feel like they've found the next star quarterback. But here's the thing. I'm going to be brutally honest about what it would actually take for me to even entertain a trade. Let's start with the basics. If you are a team and you want to pick up the phone to negotiate with the Raiders about taking the number one overall pick, the conversation isn't going to start with a simple offer. We're not talking a single first-round pick or a mid-level player here. No, this is the crown jewel of the draft, and the price is extremely high. In my mind, the baseline for a serious conversation begins with 4 first-round picks. That's right, for first-rounders. If a team can't come to the table with 4 first-round selections, there is literally no discussion to be had. That's just how important Mendoza is to the Raiders' future. And here's why it matters so much. The quarterback position is the single most critical role in the NFL. Right now, looking at the Raiders' roster, there are a lot of unknowns. Geno Smith is gone, Kenny Pickett is entering free agency, and Aiden O'Connell is essentially the only quarterback on the roster with any real experience. We cannot afford to gamble on finding a starter later in the draft or through free agency. If the Raiders were to trade this pick, they would need a quarterback in return, even if it's not a starter, because the team cannot be left with a complete hole at the position. Let's talk about supply and demand for a moment. This year's draft is not overflowing with elite quarterback talent, and the open market for established players is equally thin. That scarcity is what drives the price up. When I think about Mendoza, I think about the demand for a rare commodity like toilet paper during the early days of COVID when people were paying outrageous amounts because the supply couldn't keep up. That's exactly the situation with this pick. Mendoza is the number one overall talent. The other quarterbacks just don't compare. If any team wants him, they're going to need to pay a premium, and I'm talking an over-the-top supply-demand driven price. Now, let's get into some hypothetical trade scenarios, starting with the New York Jets. If the Jets wanted to move up to number one, we're talking a swap of the first 2 picks in the draft plus a second-round pick, number 33 overall. But here's the kicker. If that's all they offered, it wouldn't even come close to what the Raiders should expect. I want 5 first-round picks from the Jets if they want a real chance at negotiating. And because I'm thinking about the long-term health of the team, I'd also want 2 fourth-rounders added to sweeten the deal. These are not just arbitrary numbers. This is what it takes to compensate for giving up a potential franchise quarterback who could define the team for a decade. Let's shift gears and look at a scenario with the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee might be in a position to trade players like Cam Ward, and if they want the number one pick, here's what I would demand. The 4th overall pick in the current draft, the 35th pick in the second round, next season's first-round pick in 2027, Cam Ward, and defensive tackle Jeffrey Simmons. That's a massive haul, and honestly, I don't expect Tennessee to hand over all of that. But if they want to even enter the conversation, this is the kind of overpay that matches the scarcity and value of Fernando Mendoza. When you break it down, you're looking at getting not only high draft capital, but also instant impact players who can contribute right away. These trade scenarios aren't pulled out of thin air. They reflect real considerations about team needs, roster construction, and the impact a franchise quarterback can have. Teams that are looking to move up have to recognize that this isn't just any pick. Mendoza is a Heisman Trophy winner, a top-level talent, and someone who could immediately change the trajectory of the Raiders. Pairing him with a coaching staff led by Tom Brady and John Spytek is almost a match made in heaven. The investment is massive, but so is the potential reward. Now, some fans might wonder about other quarterbacks like Dante Moore. Personally, I don't think he's declaring early, And even if he did, the depth of quarterbacks available this year is limited. That scarcity is another reason why the Raiders should hang on to number one unless a team is willing to massively overpay. If the conversation doesn't start with at least 4 first-round picks, the phone goes down immediately. Anything less isn't even worth entertaining. Even if a team is offering more traditional trade packages, like swapping picks with incremental compensation, the Raiders have to think strategically. You cannot replace a player like Mendoza easily. The franchise quarterback is the linchpin for everything else to work. You can have all the picks in the world, but if you don't have a quarterback, the rest of the draft doesn't matter. This is why the Raiders have to be patient and disciplined. Overpaying is not just acceptable. It's necessary to ensure the long-term stability and success of the team. When you factor in the combination of high draft value, positional scarcity, and the transformational potential Mendoza offers, the logic becomes clear. You're not just trading a pick, you're trading a future. That's why the baseline for serious trade discussions is set so high. Every scenario I've outlined, whether with the Jets or the Titans, underscores that principle. Mendoza is the centerpiece, and any trade has to reflect that reality. The Raiders are in a position to demand enormous value because this is a rare opportunity in NFL history. Continuing with our deep dive into the Raiders' number 1 overall pick, let's explore more trade possibilities and scenarios while keeping Fernando Mendoza at the center of the discussion. Even though some fans are always speculating about trading down or exploring other quarterbacks, I'm going to be extremely clear. Mendoza is the future, and the Raiders would be taking a massive risk giving him up unless the compensation is astronomical. We're not talking about small adjustments or minor draft swaps. We're talking about a true overpay, the kind of move that makes other teams sit up and take notice because they understand just how rare this opportunity is. Now, looking beyond the Jets and Titans, there are other teams that might theoretically want to move up. But the reality is that the price I'd ask for is so high that most of those discussions would end before they really begin. For example, even a team with multiple first-round picks in the next 2 years would have to be willing to part with a combination of picks and established players to make the Raiders consider it. The key point here is that Mendoza isn't just another draft pick. He is a transformational talent who could define the Raiders' offense for the next decade. That level of value can't be measured simply by draft charts or conventional trade metrics. Speaking of trade charts, the NFL trade value chart can provide a rough framework for understanding pick value. But when it comes to a once-in-a-generation quarterback, those numbers don't tell the full story. For instance, the number 1 overall pick is traditionally valued at 3,000 points, while a number 2 pick is at 2,600. A simple swap with minimal additional compensation is nowhere near enough. The market might offer what seems fair according to the chart, but for Mendoza, fair is not the point. The Raiders have the leverage because this is a scarcity situation, and they hold the key to a player who could immediately transform a franchise. Let's revisit the Jets scenario with a more aggressive approach. If the Raiders were to engage with New York, we're talking about demanding all 3 of their first-round picks in 2027, plus additional first- and second-round picks in 2028. This isn't excessive. It's exactly what it would take to reflect Mendoza's potential impact. The Jets have been aggressive in the past, trading away star players to chase quarterback talent, which means they have the assets to make such a move. From a Raiders perspective, it's about maximizing the return while also acknowledging the transformative potential of the player you are parting with. Looking at the broader landscape, the scarcity of quarterbacks cannot be overstated. Even outside of Mendoza, the depth chart across the league is thin. There aren't many surefire starters waiting to be picked up in free agency or later rounds of the draft. Teams that try to move up have to accept that they are competing for a player who represents a rare blend of talent, leadership, and immediate impact. This is what separates Mendoza from the rest of the class. He is not just a quarterback. He is a franchise cornerstone, the kind of player around whom a team can build a dynasty. Let's consider another hypothetical trade involving the Titans, who might be open to moving pieces like Cam Ward and defensive tackle Jeffrey Simmons. If Tennessee were willing to part with their 4th overall pick, their second-round pick at 35, next season's first-round selection, Cam Ward and Simmons, The Raiders would be looking at a package that not only gives them elite draft capital, but also adds proven talent at two key positions. This is the kind of return that matches the rarity of Mendoza's abilities. It's a trade scenario that few teams would even consider realistic, but it perfectly illustrates the level of overpay necessary when the asset in question is a potential franchise quarterback. The strategic thinking here goes beyond just filling the roster. It's about creating a team capable of competing immediately while also planning for sustained success. Draft picks are valuable, but they are only as good as the players they become. By demanding a combination of top picks and proven contributors, the Raiders are not only protecting their future, but also ensuring that any trade leaves the team in a position of strength. This kind of approach requires vision and patience, something the Raiders front office clearly understands, especially with Tom Brady and John Spytek involved in evaluating potential quarterbacks. Even when exploring creative trade structures, like swapping number 1 for number 2 and adding multiple future picks, the underlying principle remains the same. The Raiders will not part with Mendoza lightly. Every potential trade must reflect his true value. And while some fans may speculate about other quarterbacks, the reality is that few players in this draft, or any draft, offer the combination of skill, leadership, and readiness that Mendoza does. This is why any serious discussion about trading the number 1 pick inevitably circles back to Fernando Mendoza as the centerpiece. Now, let's talk about the long-term implications. If the Raiders were to secure Mendoza, they're not just drafting a quarterback. They're setting the stage for a decade of strategic roster construction around a proven talent. The value of the pick is almost immeasurable because it doesn't just influence one season. It dictates how the offense is built, how the coaching staff can operate, and how the team competes at the highest level. That's why the trade cost has to be astronomical. Anything less would fail to account for the transformative potential of the player. Finally, the Raiders have to balance opportunity with risk. While trading down could provide more picks, it also introduces uncertainty. You can stockpile selections, but without a quarterback of Mendoza's caliber, the chances of building a championship-contending team diminish. Conversely, holding onto the pick ensures that the team secures a player who can elevate the entire roster, influence game plans, and set the tone for years to come. This is why every conversation about the number 1 pick must start with the understanding that Mendoza is non-negotiable unless the compensation is truly exceptional. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on our Las Vegas Raiders. And don't be shy. Drop your thoughts on the news in the comments below. Stephen A. Smith is reportedly incensed over recent developments involving the Raiders, sparking a wave of speculation about the franchise's future. According to sources close to the outspoken ESPN analyst, Smith has gone on record, though mostly in private circles, for being deeply frustrated with the direction of the team under owner Mark Davis. Insiders suggest that Smith's anger stems from what he perceives as a series of decisions that, in his eyes, tarnish the legacy of legendary coach Pete Carroll, whose early career set a standard of excellence in the league. The rumor mill has been buzzing with speculation that Smith's criticism isn't just about a single play or personnel move, but about a broader pattern of mismanagement. Friends of the analyst claim he has repeatedly referred to Davis as a joke behind closed doors, pointing to questionable draft choices, inconsistent leadership, and controversial trades that seem to prioritize short-term publicity over long-term team building. These comments, while unconfirmed in public broadcasts, have ignited discussions among fans and insiders alike, many of whom are wondering whether Smith's public persona might be masking deeper frustration with how franchise legacies are handled in modern football. Some sports insiders suggest that Smith's outburst could also be a hint at a larger narrative he's been cultivating. The idea that the NFL is losing touch with the traditions and coaching philosophies that once made it great. By invoking Carroll's name, Smith is not only elevating the standard he believes the Raiders should strive for, but also questioning whether Davis has the capacity, or even the willingness, to preserve a sense of honor and continuity within the organization. The controversy has already prompted debates across social media and sports talk shows, with pundits weighing in on whether Smith's ire is justified or merely hyperbolic commentary designed to spark engagement. While no official response has come from the Raiders organization, speculation continues to swirl about the potential consequences of Smith's criticisms. Could this signal a brewing public feud? Will it influence future management decisions or even coaching hires? For now, fans are left to wonder whether the franchise's current trajectory will ever align with the high standards set by figures like Carroll, or if, as Smith suggests, Davis is doomed to be remembered as a disruptive force rather than a visionary owner. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our Las Vegas Raiders, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.